Story 1. Brewing and distilling alcohol. Things are going to be difficult. People will want to drink. Also, people will want Molotov cocktails. Additionally, people will need sanitizer. Bartering that. Story 2. I am a civil engineer. While I will not be designing any houses, if I can survive long enough for some order to return, everyone needs roads, and I know how to make those. I even remember enough of my surveying classes to recreate primitive surveying gear from scratch and use it well enough to survey decently. If I can grab my copy of the Civil Engineering Reference Manual or the Naval Facilities Engineering Command Manual, I will be okay. Story 3. The truth is, if society collapses, we will return to a lifestyle where your worth is largely based on what you can contribute to farming or shelter. Story 4. Having a modest arsenal and ammunition cache would make me an arms dealer or barterer until I got killed. Story 5. I can do heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, vehicle repair, some appliance repair, and basic plumbing, electrical, and other types of repairs. In a situation where new cars, appliances, and similar items are difficult or expensive to replace, people are more likely to repair them. Story 6. Community management. Beyond my role as a people and project manager in my day job, I led a Dungeons & Dragons game group for 14 years across multiple campaign worlds and through an edition change. I also applied handyman skills for basic repairs, cooking ability, and a willingness to get my hands dirty. Literally with dirt, food, and building. I left behind armchair kung fu fantasies in my 20s. Story 7. I love the premise of the question. I am medically trained, enjoy woodworking, and am pretty good at it. I play guitar. I cannot garden or grow things well, but I have talents. Story 8. I can fit into almost any space, no matter how tight. Great for looting. Also, I am a dentist, so I would probably be doing a lot of medicine I am not strictly qualified to do. Story 9. Farming, handyman, basic survival skills, knowing how to defend and fight. Story 10. Situational awareness is paramount. It is not about standing in the corner facing the door, but about being aware and listening to your senses. Also, do not forget about water purification, as people often overlook it. Story 11. The skill of being so unimportant that not even a starving child would want to try to kill me for food. Story 12. Probably guns and ammunition would be by far the most efficient. Just pure violence. Other than that, I am handy, can plumb, do light electrical work, and know how to garden. I do not know much about grazing, but I learn easily. Story 13. I am pretty tall. I can reach higher shelves in abandoned Target stores. Story 14. I am a really good shot and know how to handle most guns well. It is how my father and I bonded growing up. The issue is I cried while having to put a bunny out of its misery recently. The bunny was paralyzed, and I cannot handle the sight of blood, so I am not sure how well I would do with those shooting skills. Story 15. I can grow my own plants and vegetables. I have chickens and can hunt. I think I will survive for a while. It is the winters that will weed out the weak and the hot summers with no air conditioning in the south that will drive everyone crazy. Good night and good luck. Story 16. I served in the army and also do a lot of camping, not glamping. I am a crack shot. I also worked in construction for a while. Currently, I work on more abstract software, but I can also do low-level programming. Additionally, I took some engineering courses to learn more about gears and mechanics. Overall, I believe I can offer a lot in exchange for my family being safe and being an asset to the community. Story 17. If the government falls, the private sector will probably continue, and we will turn into a state of corporate feudalism. The skills I have already. If the federal government vanishes, we will live in the United States of Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Gates. Story 18. Could someone answer about shooting sports without getting arrested? Story 19. I am about as coordinated as the Star Wars kid, but I am really good at solving problems. Story 20. Seriously, I have a yard, so growing vegetables and raising chickens and rabbits sounds like fun, to be honest. I also have a sewing machine that might come in handy. I think we have been conditioned to believe we cannot survive without the government and the corporations that control it. Communities actually have all the talent and resources needed to survive. We do not need the government. Story 21. I can grow a large amount of plants. By plants, I mean cannabis. Story 22, theater major here. I'm done from day one. None of my skills have any actual purpose beyond helping to produce entertainment that lacks substance, and I never really developed much skill in that. I have no place in a society where no one has anything to waste. Story 23. I could probably get by knowing how to make weapons, hunt and clean various animals, and perform emergency medical procedures. Story 24. Knowing how to grow food, obtain clean water, use radios, and use firearms for hunting and protection. Story 25. Hunting, fishing, building, gardening, and farming. Story 26. Engine repair, boat building, cabinetry, sailing, welding, some machining, cardiopulmonary resuscitation and first aid training, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus diving. I can play the guitar, bass, and drums, and I am a competent game master in several different tabletop role-playing game systems. I also have experience with dog sledding. You can shoot me, but it is not a good idea at all. Story 27. Mutual aid, empathy, organizing, debate skills, and brewing beer and mead. The latter would probably help all the former. Story 28. Automation, solar-powered farming, gravity-powered ram pumps, overall engineering. Story 29. I grew up in Appalachia on a farm. That would be my bread and butter. We raised our own meat, hunted, fished, tended the garden, and canned our own food. I do not need to rely on anything or anyone to survive. It is a tough life, but it is doable. Story 30. I work in orthopedics and sports medicine. I guess I will be helping those people, maybe. Story 31. I am a crafter. I make items that other people need. I know how to blacksmith, make leather or furs, and use that leather to create other products. In a pinch, I can water bath high-acid foods. However, other people will need to be the hunters and farmers. Story 32. I grew up in the countryside. I spent a lot of time on farms so I could grow food easily. I do not like to do it, but I am also used to humanely killing farm animals to survive. I forgot I am a doctor. Story 33. It has been something plumbing related for my entire adult life, so I am sure it would be that. I would dive right into it as always, but I am old enough now that I really have to think before I lift something or try to climb out of a place. Story 34. In terms of marketable skills, I was a medic in the army and have a lot of experience working in clinical and emergency settings. I would probably set up my own healing practice and be the town healer. Regarding individual skills, I have extensive knowledge of bushcraft and the outdoors, which would help me navigate the wilderness and survive. I am also a fairly accurate shot. However, despite my strengths, my character has two significant limitations. I am practically blind without my glasses or contacts, and I can barely swim. These are skill areas I need to improve. Story 35. I can do most things well enough for them to work. Also, I can make alcohol. Story 36. Food preservation methods include canning, smoking, and dehydration. I am a decent gardener and an intermediate blacksmith. Story 37. Sewing, foraging, baking, cooking, preserving and cleaning foods, good old manual labor. When you are raised on the barter system, you learn there are surprisingly many skills you can trade for goods or other services. Story 38. Being too anxious to leave home because I don't want to encounter any danger. Story 39. My culinary training allows me to make anything taste delicious. That will come in handy if we ever resort to cannibalistic options. Story 40. I am pretty good at baking bread and could probably scale that up if I could find a reliable source of flour. Story 41. I am not an amazing gardener, but if I did not need to work, I think I would be pretty good at raising chickens for eggs and growing food. The only problem would be water if the whole system collapsed. Story 42. Farming. I have done everything from planting and harvesting crops to raising livestock. Story 43. I will use my bottle cap collection to start a new economy. Story 44. Depends. If I can get generators and equipment running, then heating, ventilation, and air conditioning will remain operational. Alternatively, protect the libraries. Story 45. Peacemaking. I would begin anew in a society where everyone has everyone's best interest in mind and genuinely invests in each other's well-being. There will be no war. There will be no hatred. There will only be solutions to problems and human-to-human collaboration. Story 46. I would be useless in the first few weeks and months, but as society continues to collapse, it will become increasingly difficult to hear your favorite song. That is where I come in. I might not sound great right now, but after society collapses, I will go into full bard mode. Story 47. I would not. Give me a quick and painless death, please. Story 48. Project management and financial planning and analysis could be useful during rebuilding and reclamation efforts. Story 49. I could survive hunting deer and fishing where I live for a while, but you still need ammunition. We could heat with wood for a while, but that depends on gasoline for the chainsaw. Honestly, it would be risky for anything longer than a month or two without power or fuel. Story 50. I was a scout for many years and learned many skills I use today, including wilderness survival, firearm use and manufacturing, and chicken keeping. Story 51. I would be the person who serves as an ambassador to other communities. Story 52. Hunting, fishing, ingenuity in natural resource use, tool making, knife making and repair, well digging, wind power, and distilling. Story 53. Thank you for inquiring. Medical training is financially challenging. You will spend $300 to obtain it and the next 8 years trying to repay it. A less than worthless waste. Story 54. I can pick things up and put things down effectively for a reasonably long time, and I take instructions well. Wherever you go and whatever you do, I can almost definitely help you do it better than you could alone. I'm also the one who thought to raid the library for books that aid in survival and society building, so you're welcome for that. I have a decent understanding of the transference of energy, so I know there are many small things I can do. The ability that gives me to make or direct fire has been proven already. I can fill many cracks in what a great many people will need. Yes, sex workers, I'll stand right outside with a club and expect nothing more than food and shelter in return. Whoever does the primary work, I'll be right next to you doing the rest. In my spare time and some work time, I'll think of ways to make things work better, but when it comes to doing, I'll just do. I don't want to lead, I just want to do and to suggest. That's my primary skill. I'll carry logs all day. Also, I can juggle with 3 balls. That's pretty important, I imagine. Someone who can juggle kind of. Story 55. The one I rely on now is cleaning. There will be a need for things to be cleaned, and there will be a demand for others to do it. Story 56. I am a Call of Duty Warzone veteran. I would grab a specialist and use the loadout drop to get my loadout and probably win the match. Story 57. People with skills in engineering, plumbing, or electrical work would be good. Story 58. I know how to make bows, produce alcohol, farm, hunt, and fish. If I survive the first round, I think I will do okay. Story 59. I can lift a lot of weight. I can shoot multiple firearms accurately. And I am not grossed out by blood, butchering, or dismemberment. I can also cook. I imagine I would thrive in an anarchist scenario. Story 60. I am a pipe layer and heavy equipment operator by trade. I also worked as a welder for a few years. I would find a piece of land and farm it. I love growing plants, enjoy manual labor, and most of all, I love being alone. I would be farming right now if I could afford the land. I would farm extensively and build earthwork fortifications if there were difficult people to deal with. Story 61. Probably do what I do now. Go down to downtown and entertain decent, overworked people who want to forget the outside world with some professional wrestling. Story 62. I am a fair carpenter, a tolerable metal worker, and a bit of an engineer. I have a few thousand books of reference as well as fiction, so I could be a librarian. I was raised as a farmer. I am a good cook, I can butcher an animal well, I am a good tracker and a good talker. I am a singer and can play guitar. I am an excellent storyteller. I am quite good at poker, which is handy. I would be fine. My back is bad, so you will have to do the fetching and carrying for me. Story 63. Well, I have been doing security and corrections work for the majority of my adulthood. So, I guess just a less restrictive version of that. Story 64. I am an excellent conflict mediator. If that fails, I am also a skilled marksman. Story 65. I do not know. My job as a software engineer is pretty contingent on society existing. I could play the violin to entertain people at it, I guess, though I am by no means a professional. Story 66. Charisma. It is easy to persuade people to do what you want if you have a bit of charisma and confidence. Story 67. My skill of walking to reach the Canadian border. Story 68. Dungeon mastering. Think about it. What game can you play that requires zero resources other than a pen and paper? Dungeons and Dragons would be the ideal pastime of the post-apocalypse. Story 69. I am an electrician. I can easily set up a power infrastructure from scavenged components. Getting wires and solar panels is simple. They are widely available. Story 70. I wouldn't. I would just use opioids and steal opioids until someone finally shoots me. Story 71. No one person can do everything needed in order to survive. Sorry to ruin your prepper fantasy, but communities are necessary for survival. Story 72. Automotive knowledge is essential for survival. The key to standing out is having transportation. You need to know how to get out of difficult situations quickly. Additionally, everyone else will be looking for a car, so you can trade that knowledge for many things. Story 73. Piracy like the boat kind. I would cruise up and down the coast being the dread pirate me. Story 74. Farming, distilling, fermenting, weaving, and woodworking. Every day, I am thankful that I was raised by hillbillies with the good sense to know how to care for themselves and their family with these skills. On a related note, if you have not read the books in the World Made by Hand series by James Howard Kunstler, they offer valuable insight at this inflection point in our country's history. I hear he holds controversial views regarding gay marriage and expresses skepticism about renewable energy, but even as a solar-reliant queer person, I am glad I read those books. Story 75. I would commit suicide. I would not survive in the cutthroat world of an anarchic society. Eventually, I would be the target of someone who could either imprison me, murder me, or torture me. I would rather go out on my own terms instead of at the hands of someone else. Story 76. I can cook and bake from scratch, knit, sew, preserve food, make a fire in the rain, have some medical training, read maps, build a shelter, and am working on amateur radio skills. Story 77. I feel like this whole thread is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of anarchy. That said, I am 3 different kinds of engineer, a good mechanic, a competent carpenter, a somewhat decent gardener, and I can grow a few kinds of plants. I will find a way to be useful in the new egalitarian society based on mutual aid. Story 78. I probably know more about growing food than most people and have a decent understanding of medical care and first aid. Story 79. My friends said choosing the military occupational specialty machine gunner was a waste when I enlisted. They said I should pick something that would give me a useful skill. Anarchy would be my time to shine. Story 80. Pharmacology, blood and urine sample manual interpretation, administering medications to both humans and animals, suturing, basic wound care, and knowing which algae are edible. Story 81. As a maritime business manager, I can assure you from all the series I have seen that my talents will definitely be needed in a zombie apocalypse. There are no zombies on ships, so I am going to be the total expert. Story 82. I am good at making old junker cars run forever, sometimes using parts from other types of cars. I am sure this will become more popular as people realize that finding specific electronic components that work when they are no longer being made is difficult. Sometimes, companies remotely disable all these parts in their cars before government regulations change. Story 83. Many people are talking about shooting, but no one mentions simply being likable. If people like you and you are good at something they need, you will generally be left alone or get help when necessary. Shooting someone will likely result in someone else coming to shoot you. Story 84. I can defeat or kill most people in a fight. I am not a particularly violent person, so let me take what I need, and everything will be fine. Story 85. In no particular order, machine shop, old steam-powered, internal combustion, building generators from scratch, provided some raw materials, gunsmithing, radio electronics with disturbingly little knowledge, transformers from scratch, way too much. I am that person. Story 86. I feel like most people do not understand how quickly they would be killed if this happened. Story 87. I am the best fisherman I know. I live on a boat. See you on the other side, brothers. As for the poster stating that her breasts will save her, we should meet up sometime. Story 88. I would use my skill at recognizing Reddit fantasy threads, realize I was in a silly American dream, and wake up. Story 89. My ability to be completely heartless and clinical in the way I interact with people. Story 90. Unfortunately, violence would likely be an extremely useful skill. Story 91. Buy a fifth of liquor and a carton of cigarettes every payday to use as barter materials. You will be more useful than ever. Story 92. I would use my knowledge of how to tie a noose, but that would not be for survival. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.